also do recognize gas as a transition fuel.
You can't kill ignorance by fire, but by knowledge.
Connection between financial resilience in the energy transition and your climate resilience.
We need to own the narrative. We need to collaborate.
We want to align with what government is doing.
We can generate power from the gas that will flare to power the whole of Africa.
We continue to apply technologies to help us reduce emissions further.
Industrial growth must be accelerated, infrastructure must be put in place in the short term.
In NCDMB, we believe that behind every dark cloud there is a silver lining.
Our major objective remains the transformation of Nigeria into a gas-based, industrialized nation.
This first summit has set the foundation for the achievement.
Gas will become the dominant fuel for generating power.
Again, a very good morning, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. 6 years and counting, the Nigerian International Energy Summit, used to be known as Petroleum Summit, has continued to deliver these platforms for industry stakeholders across the continent to come and find out how we as Africans will continue to push a business and an agenda for our people and our industry in spite of the turmoil that is facing our industry, giving the geopolitical narrative and indeed conversations around climate that many are demanding that we stop or limit our production of these God-given resources. I remember very well that in 2020, we dodged a bullet because we had finished before COVID kicked in as hard as it did that year. And this year, in spite of the transition, this year, in spite of the breaks, the holidays were here, you were here, and we thank you immensely for your presence. We thank our sponsors for their support. And we commend Brevity Anderson for continuing to create this platform. Richmond Osuji is my name, and I welcome you to the banquet hall of the Presidential Villa here in Abuja for this 2023 edition, where we are looking at global perspectives for sustainable energy future. Over $300 billion has been released by the United States government to stimulate, or if you like, create some form of incentives in the renewable energy sector in their country, thereby affecting what we do globally. And of course, recently, OPEC decided to cut production to give some stability to pricing. And one of Africa's hardest working sons in terms of pushing for energy equity in terms of the transition told me something yesterday. I would allow him to say that when he gets his turn to speak at this event. That indeed there's a bit of hypocrisy when it comes to this energy transition conversations. Global warming, climate change, whatever you call it, all of this forms the bedrock of what we will be discussing in the next 4 days here at this year's event. Our speakers will share their thought. Companies will show us the technology they have developed and deploying to reduce emissions, and all of this will come together when we close out with the evening's event on Thursday. Onwards now to the opening ceremony. as I warmly welcome once again His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, who is also the Minister of Petroleum Resources of our dear country, ably represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. We welcome and acknowledge your presence, sir, Mr. Boss Mustafa, CFR. Good morning, sir. I'd like to also extend or acknowledge the presence. I haven't seen them here, but I'm told from the National Assembly will be receiving representations. When they get here, we will recognize them. Let me then recognize the presence of some ministers of cabinet who have joined us here this morning. We're joined this morning by the Honorable Minister of State, Industry, Trade and Investment, Ambassador Miriam Katagum. Ambassador, we welcome you and thank you for your kind presence this morning. We welcome Your Excellencies, ambassadors of foreign nations who were here today. We were joined yesterday at the dinner by the ambassador of Germany to Nigeria, Spain to Nigeria, Morocco to Nigeria, and I'm sure a lot more are here this morning. But please, because of time, I may not have the luxury to recognize all of them by name. Can we please give a warm applause in acknowledging the presence of all of these ambassadors from foreign nations? Let's give them a warm applause. You're welcome, Your Excellencies. Of course, a permanent secretary of the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources, Ambassador Gabriel Tanimu Aduda. A very good morning to you and thank you for your kind presence. We appreciate your presence. We also welcome the Secretary General, Minister of Petroleum of Niger Republic, Mr. Zubairu Mazou. Monsieur, a warm welcome to you and thank you for your presence. We acknowledge here the heads of international petroleum and energy agencies, some of them who have joined us virtually. But in the room this morning, we acknowledge the presence of the Secretary General of Apple, Dr. Omar. We salute and we welcome you, sir. Dr. Omar Farouk, thank you for joining us this morning. We also like to recognize the presence here of the Chairman of the Board of Regulatory Agencies in our industry, the Chairman of the Board of NUPRC, Malam Isa Modibo, a warm welcome to you. Mr. Organ, the Chairman of the Board of NMGPRA, a warm welcome to you as we acknowledge your presence. We acknowledge the presence of the heads of the agencies in our ministry, Engineer Gbenga Komolafe FNSE, the Commission Chief Executive Officer. We welcome you. Thank you, sir, for your presence. We appreciate your presence. Dr. Simbi KCA Wabote, FNSE, ESNCDMB. I was called and told he was here. Perhaps he will be working any moment now. And of course, we acknowledge the presence here of the Chairman of the Board of NNPC Limited and all members of the Board of NNPC Limited who've joined us here. Distinguished Senator Marjorie Chubal Kadibo. Good morning, ma'am. Always good to see you. The Group Chief Executive Officer of NNPC Limited is one of those dignitaries who are observing religious exercise at this time outside of the country. Representing him is the Executive Vice President, Gas, Power and New Energy for NNPC. We welcome you, Mr. Mohammed Abdulkadir Ahmed. A very good morning to you, sir, and a warm welcome. Please let's give them a round of applause and appreciate their kind presence to this year's event. We'd like to also recognize the presence, acknowledge the presence of the directors from the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources. We thank you all for your work that you do, your commitment in seeing this event to the 6th year and counting, and we acknowledge your presence. Of course, we also acknowledge the presence of the managing directors of international oil companies. I begin with the managing director, the chairman and managing director of Chevron Nigeria, who is also the chairman of OPTS, Mr. Rick Kennedy. Good morning and a warm welcome to you. We acknowledge your presence. And when I say IOCs these days, it is the I in it has a dual role. We're talking independent, we're talking international. Mr. Abdul Razak Isa, Chairman IPPG, Chairman Watersmith, good morning and welcome. By the way, IPPG is sponsoring this opening ceremony. Can we give them a resounding applause? If you're a first timer to our industry event, that is the Independent Petroleum Producers Group, OPTS's Oil Producers Trade Section. We welcome all of you. A warm welcome to other managing directors of IOCs who have joined us here this morning. Time will fail me at this outset to recognize all of you, but I promise When we get to the other part of this event at the ICC, I will take a moment to appreciate all of our sponsors who are quite numerous, and most of whom's managing directors are seated in the room this morning. But we'll extend our acknowledgement to all MDs of IOCs, independent and international, MDs of the service companies, chairmen and presidents of industry association. I've seen the president of NAPI, I've seen the chairman of PCTS, I've seen the reps of SPE, and many others like that. We welcome, of course, all distinguished invited guests from across the globe. We have representatives from Italy who have joined us here this morning as well. We welcome every other industry expert who has come to profile solutions and indeed help highlight what we should be doing for the incoming administration. When you take the map of Africa and flip it in a horizontal shape, you find that Nigeria is perfectly positioned in the place of a trigger. And as always, Nigeria plays that role to trigger development and stimulate conversations across the continent. We're hopeful that the deliberations from this event will be one of such triggers for the incoming administration of our dear country, Nigeria. Once again, Richmond Usuji is the name, and I will get straight into the business of the morning by welcoming to take the organizers' opening comment, the chairman of Brevity Anderson. Oh, for a moment, please. Can we give Brevity Anderson a resounding applause for the doggedness and the resilience in keeping this event going. Thank you, Brevity Anderson. So to kickstart the event with the introductory comments, I'd like to welcome now the chairman of Brevity Anderson. Let's welcome Mr. Olatunde Akoni.
Good morning, everybody. I stay standing on existing protocol. Let me just quickly get to my notes. And let me start. Let me say, as chairman of Brevity Anderson, I'm delighted to see so many people here from the past and also a number of new people who come to join us today. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us to embrace new relationships as we go forward. I think, as we all know, we now live in interesting times, as the Chinese like to say, in terms of the geopolitical situation that faces us in the world. There's no doubt that Africa has a leading place to play. We are now a significant part of what's taking place in the world. We have a major opportunity to be major players in terms of what's changing the face of this world. So can I say that this conference today is one small step, a significant step, but a small step in terms of what can take place to change what's going on in the world right now. And can I say that for those of you who are coming to the event maybe for the first time, this is an amazing opportunity to network, to establish new relationships, and for those of you who've been here for many years, to provide ongoing relationships with new sets of people. Can I say that though the times right now seem distant for some, the opportunities that exist for us right now are prevalent. So please take the maximum opportunity to do things while you're here. Network with other people, have a chance to enjoy yourself as well, because as Nigerians, we know that the one thing we like to do is enjoy ourselves. So please have a great time over the next 4 or 5 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akoni, Chairman of Brevity Anderson, setting the tone for us there to get started with the business of today. Before I proceed, I'd like to also acknowledge the presence of one of our keynote speakers a little later this morning, the President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Kiyomi Adesina, who's represented by Director General of Nigerian Country Department of African Development Bank, Mr. Lamin Barrow. Mr. Barrow? Thank you for being here. Thank you. We acknowledge your presence. Of course, the ACE Authority Chief Executive NMDPRA is represented by Executive Director Mr. Obugo Koha. Mr. Koha, we acknowledge your presence. His Excellency Mr. Louis Ernesto Pinda, Charge d'Affaires of the Embassy of Venezuela. Your Excellency, we welcome you and thank you for your presence. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, onwards with our agenda. I'd like to welcome now for the official welcome address at this event, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. Please welcome Ambassador Gabriel Tanimo Ajuda.
His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, ably represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, honorable ministers here present. I want to particularly thank those of you that just walked in at this point. The Chair of the Board, the Secretary of Apple, Board Chairman and members, heads of agencies, Engineer Benga here, I hear Simbi is somewhere here, the heads of international oil companies, the Chairman of Brevity and your team who have done an excellent work, our sponsors across the room, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends in the energy industry. Please permit me to stop here with the protocols if I haven't breached them already. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the 6th edition of Nigeria International Energy Summit. This summit provides for us a unique opportunity to come together, to share knowledge, insights, and to discuss the challenges and opportunities that face the energy industry globally. We are living in an era of rapid change, with new technologies, shifting geopolitical realities, and changing global dynamics. It is clear that energy plays a critical role in shaping our world, from powering our homes, to fueling our cars, running our businesses. We need energy in one form or the other, practically at every minute and every point of our lives. Energy is at the heart of our modern-day way of life. However, as the world's population grows and economies expand, the demand for energy continues to rise, making it more important than ever before that we work together to find sustainable and innovative solutions to meet this growing demand. Here in Nigeria, we are committed to driving this transition forward. We are blessed with considerable deposits of oil and gas resources, which have over the years played very, very important roles in our economic development. And we are working to ensure our energy sector remains a key driver of this economic growth and social progress as we imbibe cleaner ways of production and further domesticate the utilization of gas resources within and beyond our borders. We are also committed to a sustainable energy future, and we are investing in renewable energy as well, energy efficiency and clean technologies. We believe that by working together, we can build a more resilient, sustainable, and equitable energy future for all. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies here present, over the next few days, we will hear from experts and leaders from across the global energy industry, and we will engage in productive discussions about the key issues facing our industry today. I am confident that this summit will provide a valuable platform for us to share, build networks, identify opportunities for collaboration and innovation. I would like to thank our partners and sponsors once again for their support in making this summit possible, and to express my gratitude to all of the participants for their commitment to advancing the cause of sustainable energy. I wish us all a very successful and rewarding summit, and I look forward to insights and ideas that will emerge from our discussions. But while we do that, please let us also take out time to play. Let it not be all work. For those of you that missed the opening dinners hosted by Shell yesterday, trust me, you'll miss some dancing steps, as the commercial manager of Shell introduced us to some very new moves yesterday. We could see him dance Buga, we could see him dance to Burna Boy, and the rest of it. It was amazing. Throughout these 5 days, there will be special dinners sponsored by various entities. I want to encourage us all to please make time to attend these dinners. Let us not be too tired to unwind, because all evenings promise to be very interesting. I welcome you all.
Couldn't have said it better, what happened last night. And I left it for the right and the best man to talk about it. And he's done justice to it. And he has told you, if you're not attending the evening functions, you're definitely missing seeing. In fact, even the ambassadors were digging it out yesterday. Thank you one more time, Ambassador Aduda, Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources, walking us through what to expect and pretty much giving us a charge from the ministry as to what to do in the next couple of days, knowing that they are the ones who will run with whatever comes out of this as a way of policy and pushing to the right and appropriate quarters for either implementation or looking for new laws. Thank you once again, Permanent Secretary. Can you please give him another round of applause? Thank you. In my opening, I did mention of a particular young African who has been pushing the narrative for us to have a just energy transition. I take a moment to acknowledge his presence, Mr. Nje Ayuk. Good morning, and I commend you immensely for the work you do. Let's give him a round of applause, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. He's the chairman of the African Energy Chamber. Onwards with our program this morning, we'd like to take our next remark, an industry remark, and this time is coming from Dr. Mele Kolokiari, Group Chief Executive Officer of NNPC, as I said earlier, represented by Executive Vice President, Gas, Power and New Energy. Please welcome Mr. Mohammed Abdul Qadir Ahmed.
Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented by the Secretary to the Federal Government of Nigeria in the person of Mr. Boss Mustafa, I would please request for your indulgence to stand on the existing protocol that has been established by Mr. Richmond Osuji. Today, I'm here wearing the cap of Mr. Mele Kolokiari, the Chief Executive Officer, Group Chief Executive Officer of the NNPC, who is unavoidably absent. I will attempt to bridge the gap, and in doing so, I have his message that is well written, and in order not to miss any of the information that he wants to pass, I would also read through what has been prepared. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to be back here for the 6th Nigeria International Energy Summit, aptly themed Global Perspectives for Sustainable Future. The world today has recognized the need for ensuring sustainability in the energy landscape, which is in line with the current realities. And as key players in the energy sector, our mandate of providing energy for our country still remains a priority. In order to achieve that, NNPC is poised to reliably deliver energy to our stakeholders, though efficient utilization, hydrocarbons, and other new energy sources which our country is blessed with, you will agree with me that sustained energy sufficiency directly enables economic growth. Directly enables economic growth and development, as can be seen in the history of the developed countries. This is why we are focused on efficiently producing energy while minimizing the effect on the environment. Oil and gas remain a significant component of energy, a significant component of the global energy mix. Therefore, we are unlocking more opportunities across both the oil and gas value chain, spanning from supply and infrastructure to the markets. In this regard, NNPC Limited is actively supporting the federal government towards the realization of key initiatives such as the Decade of Gas and the National Gas Expansion Program, which seeks to deepen natural gas utilization as an alternative transportation fuel, virtual gas supply to off-pipeline grid gas customers, and gas utilization as feedstock for the development of gas-based industries. This is evident in the definite actions taken to utilize CNG and LNG to power vehicles, buildings, and power plants. NNPC is also investing heavily in critical gas infrastructure such as the Ajaokuta, Abuja, Kano, popularly known as AKK gas pipeline, and the OB3, that is Obrikon-Obiafom gas interconnector to support 5 BCF of gas per day of domestic gas utilization, including 5 gigawatt of power generation capacity by developing power plant projects along the AKK corridor and across the country to complement the existing ones. For the gas export market, the ongoing NLNG Train 7 will expand Nigeria's LNG production capacity to about 30 million tons per annum. This is in addition to the planned Nigeria-Morocco and Trans-Sahara gas pipeline projects, which will supply gas to sub-regional African countries and subsequently Europe. In addition to our existing upstream activities, we are also deepening exploration activities of Nigeria's frontier basins using the best industry standards and technologies, which is already yielding results such as can be seen in the Kolmani discovery, and also we are hopeful that the recent spot in of the Ebenyi A well in Nasarawa State will follow suit. The 6th edition of the Nigeria International Energy Summit has provided us all with a platform to tell our story and engage further based on our unique landscape and strengths, which will eventually contribute to form part of the global narrative. NNPC will continue to leverage our partners with the industry, government research institutions, and the academia to ensure energy security and sustainability. On this note, I thank you all for listening, and I look forward to subsequent sessions which will undoubtedly be very engaging and insightful. Thank you, Mele Kolo Kiari.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Mohammed Abdulkadir Ahmed, EVP Gas and New Energy for NNPC, speaking on behalf of his principal, the Group Chief Executive, Dr. Mele Kolokyari, who we all know is unable to join us. Can we please give him one more round of applause, giving us that industry address, what they are doing. I'm sure if you're seeking to partner with the national oil company, you can see from that address how you can go about that. And of course, giving us what they're doing in the frontier basins. I'd like to acknowledge the presence here of the Honorable Minister of Health, Dr. Osagie Haniri. Honorable Minister, very good morning, and we will acknowledge your presence. Thank you so much. I'll recognize some more ministers when I come back, but for now, let us continue with goodwill messages as I welcome the Chairman, Independent Petroleum Producers Group, and Chairman of Walter Smith Group, Mr. Abdul Rasak Isa. Well, if you remember that I said they are sponsoring the opening ceremony, you will, the applause, I mean, you will, thank you very much.
Ramadan Kareem to our Muslim brothers, and good morning to you all. I'm going to stand on the existing protocol as laid by Richmond, but let me start by recognizing His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented by Mr. Boss Mustafa, the Secretary to Government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Your Excellencies, Captains of Industry, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is with great delight and honor that I convey this goodwill message on behalf of the Independent Petroleum Producers Group on this occasion of the 6th edition of the Nigerian International Energy Summit. Let me begin by commending the Ministry of Petroleum Resources for once again convening this summit. As you are aware, this is the 6th edition, and we have all witnessed remarkable growth of the summit over the years. I have no doubt that this will be sustained and enhanced in the years to come. As always, the theme of this year's summit is topical, as it resonates with current operating landscape and is truly thought-provoking. Global perspectives for sustainable energy future. I'm sure participants will spend the next 4 days deconstructing this concept and what it truly means for our industry within the Nigerian context. Permit me to throw down the gauntlet here and state that by the end of this summit, we are able to define what sustainable energy future will look like for Nigeria and what role our industry plays in this regard. There's no gainsaying that the oil and gas industry will be at the forefront in achieving a sustainable energy future for Nigeria, and I dare say Africa, considering the impressive hydrocarbon resources at our disposal. However, it is imperative that our march towards a sustainable energy future is aligned to our immediate energy needs as a country. The journey towards decarbonization is an irreversible course. As the world drives towards a low-carbon future, the clamor for just transition and taking into perspective the peculiarities and developmental challenges faced by Africa will remain. As the continent continues to grapple with worsening energy crisis, it is incumbent upon us to define our energy transition trajectory, which must also complement our energy security objectives. Transitioning to a low-carbon economy in the face of energy poverty requires a delicate balancing act to define an optimal energy mix for Nigeria, one which will ultimately be hinged on rapidly increasing energy access to our populace and introducing cleaner energy sources into our energy mix. As an industry, our overall focus must be on reducing carbon footprint and partnering with the government to protect and improve the ecosystem. There is no doubt that building a sustainable energy future for us calls for effective policies, investment in the right technology, and an innovative mindset. At the end of this summit, we may all have differences in opinion in terms of what a sustainable energy future for Nigeria will look like, but I'm confident we'll all agree that gas will remain Nigeria's main pathway to sustainable energy future. It is therefore reassuring that proactive and concerted efforts are being undertaken by the government through policy initiatives such as declaring 2021 to 2030 as the decade of gas to utilize and commercialize the nation's abundant gas resources and also end gas flares by 2030. Unlocking this gas potential within the decade will certainly involve the collective strengths of the government and the industry working together and removing bottlenecks constraining the development of our gas resources. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, notwithstanding the notable achievements recorded to date across the oil and gas industry in Nigeria, a new dawn is emerging due to various global and domestic events. The ongoing industry reforms, divestments by the international oil companies, IOCs, geopolitical conflicts, and the global energy transition drive. These are bound to bring about a transformational shift across the entire industry and therefore calls for an immediate repositioning of the industry. The Nigerian oil and gas industry has a very limited window to get things right and must work towards a rapid exploitation of its vast hydrocarbon assets for the socio-economic transformation of Nigeria and deploying same to guarantee our energy security. At this juncture, and as a key industry stakeholders, let me therefore take this opportunity to lend IPPG's voice to industry priorities and call on the incoming administration of His Excellency Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu to address the bottlenecks mitigating against industry growth and energy security. The administration's agenda for the industry should be geared towards A, improving investor confidence through effective implementation of the PIA and strengthening of regulatory institutions. B, arresting the menace of crude theft across the Niger Delta, which still lingers despite recent successes recorded by the federal government. C, harnessing the nation's hydrocarbon asset, particularly gas, to catalyze and rapidly industrialize the Nigerian economy. And C, building a broader value-creating midstream gas processing plants and downstream refineries and transforming Nigeria into product suppliers. And E, eliminating industry-wide subsidies for all hydrocarbon and refined products as they remain detrimental to the growth of a vibrant industry. Your Excellencies, captains of industry, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on a concluding note, it is instructive to note that this edition of the NIES will be the last of this current administration. It is on this note and on behalf of the Board of Trustees and the Governing Council of the Independent Petroleum Producers Group, I would like to specially commend and also express our deepest gratitude to His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, for his continuous support and unwavering commitment to the survival and growth of our industry. Under his leadership, his administration has delivered unprecedented milestones across the entire industry. Equally, we extend our gratitude to the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, NNPCL, and our industry regulators for their dogged and pragmatic implementation of the lofty visions of Mr. President for the industry. As always, IPPG remains committed and supports the policies and programs of government for the benefit of industry as well as Nigeria. I thank you for your attention and wish you all memorable and engaging session at the 6th edition of the Nigerian International Energy Summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The IPPG, led by its chairman, is already giving the incoming administration bullets to fire that trigger for energy industry development in our country, which of course will be impacting the rest of the continent. Onwards with goodwill, I'd like to now welcome the Chairman, Oil Producers Trade Section of LCCI and Chairman and Managing Director, Chevron Nigeria. Please welcome Mr. Rick Kennedy.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, industry captains, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Please allow me to stand on existing protocol. On behalf of the Oil Producers Trade Section of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I thank the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and the organizers for this opportunity to be part of this year's edition of the Nigerian International Energy Summit. I also wish to use this opportunity to congratulate the Ministry and the organizers for past successful summits, which have served as a platform for highlighting Nigeria's strong capabilities in the oil and gas sector and its available investment opportunities. The theme for this year's summit, Global Perspectives for a Sustainable Energy Future, is very timely for all stakeholders, as the world in general and our energy industry in particular have spent the last few years adjusting to various challenges and opportunities we face in these extraordinarily turbulent and uncertain times. Post the COVID-19 pandemic, global demand for energy is rising. The Russia-Ukraine conflict has triggered disruptions in the oil and gas value chain, with increased energy prices amidst uncertainties around supply chain security. At the same time, the need to address society's concerns over climate change caused by greenhouse gas emissions and other environmental stresses has never been more important. Addressing these challenges will require many things, including a thoughtful transition to the affordable, reliable, secure, and ever cleaner energy system of the future. Nigeria has clearly demonstrated its commitment to the energy transition through enactment of its Climate Change Act 2021, through presentation of its Energy Transition Plan, and through its stated commitment to reach net zero by 2060. For Nigeria, it is expected that traditional oil and gas will remain a key element of its energy mix, required to meet the energy demands of today while funding investments to diversify and develop cleaner energy systems of the future. We expect that deliberations during this summit will identify solutions towards sustained development of Nigeria's resources, particularly gas as a transition fuel, while also catalyzing growth of new energy systems. We expect this will boost confidence and attract investment to grow the energy industry for the benefit of all stakeholders. In all of these, the Oil Producers Trade Section and its 28 member companies remain committed as a trusted partner of the government and all stakeholders to move the industry forward. I wish you all valuable discussions these next few days. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reed Kennedy, the Chairman of OPTS, speaking on behalf of all member companies. Onwards, we'll go to our next, and this time we're going virtual. I did say that some of the heads of international energy agencies have joined us virtually. So we're going to our first virtual presentation this morning, and it's coming from the Secretary General of Gas Exporting Countries Forum. I'd like to now turn it over to Mr. Mohammed Hamil.
Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Excellencies, National Assembly leaders, ministers, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, greetings from the Secretariat of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum in Doha. I am honored to address the 6th Nigeria International Energy Summit and extend my sincerest appreciation to His Excellency Chief Timipri Silva, Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, for his kind invitation. Nigeria is an important member of the GECF, and its representatives on our governing bodies contribute positively to the progress of the organization. We are also fortunate to have competent and dedicated individuals from Nigeria working in our secretariat. They are excellent team players who are highly respected within the organization. Nigeria is also a pillar member of two other organizations that are very dear to me, OPEC and APU. And I would like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to the late Mohammed Sanusi Barkindo, a great ambassador of Nigeria, who was a passionate advocate of OPEC, the GECF, and the energy world. May his soul rest in peace. Ladies and gentlemen, as the second largest gas producer in Africa, Nigeria plays an important role in natural gas markets. Its prospects are even brighter as it holds the largest proven gas reserves in the continent. According to the GECF Global Gas Outlook, published in January, gas production in Nigeria is expected to more than triple by 2050. President Buhari's vision of the decade of gas is a strategic move to transform the Nigerian economy into a gas-based one by 2030. The GECF expects gas consumption in Nigeria to increase nearly fivefold by 2050. Ladies and gentlemen, energy powers our lives every day. It keeps the economy running, houses warm or cold, and lights on. By 2050, the global population will increase by 1.8 billion people. The size of the economy will double, and the standard of living will be higher for most. The world will thus need more energy, but it also needs better air quality and less greenhouse gas emissions. The GECF Outlook forecasts that global primary energy demand is set to increase by 22% by 2050, despite significant energy efficiency improvements. Clean, available, affordable, and versatile, natural gas will play a crucial role in alleviating energy poverty and supporting socio-economic development. By 2050, the demand for natural gas is expected to increase by 36%, and its share in the global energy mix to rise from 23% today to 26%. Africa is well endowed in natural gas resources. To turn these resources into supply requires heavy investments. The argument that Africa should forego the development of its abundant natural gas resources for the sake of environmental protection is deeply misguided. In fact, a developed Africa is better equipped to safeguard the environment than a poorer Africa. Therefore, access of African countries to financial resources and to advanced technology shall be preserved and facilitated. Just recently, Mozambique became an LNG exporter last November, and Mauritania and Senegal are set to become exporters in the near future. We are proud to welcome Mozambique to the GECF and look forward to Mauritania joining us later this year. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for your kind invitation, and I wish your summit all the success. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Secretary General of Gas Exporting Countries Forum, Mr. Mohammed Hamil, giving us his goodwill and thoughts on where gas should be going at this time. Thank you. From the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, we go to the African Petroleum Producers Organization, APO, as I'd like to now welcome the Secretary General of APO, our very own Dr. Omar Farouk.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to participate in the 6th edition of the Nigeria International Energy Summit. I stand on previous protocols and extend my best wishes to all.
Over to you, sir. No, Oga Farouk. No, you're still speaking. You're still speaking. No. Huh? It was. As directed by my Oga, who am I? OPEC has the floor. Please go ahead. But before you do that, can I please tell my delegate who is about to speak? He knows his OPEC. Some other person might not know. And that will be Mr. Haitham Al-Gais, Secretary General of OPEC. Thank you. Back to you, sir.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to participate in the 6th edition of the Nigeria International Energy Summit. I stand on previous protocols and extend my best wishes to all esteemed guests and attendees, and my apologies for not being able to join you in person. As I am in Mecca for the last week of Ramadan, I could not travel to Abuja, but I look forward to visiting Nigeria very soon. At the outset, I would like to send my best regards to His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We are extremely grateful that President Buhari has been a strong supporter of OPEC for many decades, including our recent market stabilization efforts and the ongoing cooperation with 10 non-OPEC countries under the Declaration of Cooperation. As I am speaking at one of Nigeria's premier events, I would also like to pay tribute to my late predecessor, my brother, Secretary General His Excellency Mohammed Sanusi Barkindo. Mr. Barkindo was a proud Nigerian and worked with many of you throughout his career. We still deeply feel his loss at OPEC, for had he lived, he would have celebrated his 64th birthday on Thursday, April 20th. May his soul rest in peace. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this year's NIES, namely Global Perspectives for a Sustainable Energy Future, is timely and very apt because climate negotiations need to be inclusive and reflect global perspectives. The perspective of developing countries must be heard. The perspective of Africa must be heard. The perspective of the fuel poor must be heard. As an intergovernmental organization composed exclusively of developing countries, 7 of which are African, OPEC wants all voices included in discussions on energy transitions. I stress it as a plural, as I firmly believe each nation and peoples have their own energy transition pathway. OPEC has a long history of supporting environmental issues and sustainable development. We have been directly involved in the evolution of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, from the UN Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee in 1990 to COP27 held in Sharm el-Sheikh in 2022. We are delighted that COP28 will be hosted by our member country, the United Arab Emirates. In addition to being involved in climate negotiations, OPEC and its member countries are proactive in looking for a diverse range of energy sources to meet the needs of the future. According to our World Oil Outlook, global primary energy demand is forecast to increase by a significant 23% in the period to 2045, which necessitates utilizing all forms of energy. Resultantly, many of our member countries have invested heavily in renewables, particularly solar, nuclear, wind, and waste-to-energy power, in addition to carbon capture, utilization and storage, CCUS, and hydrogen projects, as well as the circular carbon economy, which has received a positive endorsement from the G20. At OPEC, we recognize that the scope of the climate challenge requires comprehensive solutions. There is no panacea that can solve it all alone. The oil and gas industry can foster its resources and expertise and help unlock our emissions-free future through its powerful role as an innovator in developing cleaner and more efficient technological solutions. A diverse range of mitigation measures are necessary. The capacities and national circumstances of developing countries must be taken into account in all actions. We should never forget that climate change and sustainable development are 2 sides of the same coin. According to the UN, 733 million people do not have access to electricity. Furthermore, 1/3 of the world's population use dangerous or inefficient cooking systems, which causes a host of health-related problems. Therefore, policymakers need to be cognizant that even the best-intentioned policies can have unintended consequences. This increases the stakes in the policy design phase. If policy design is not robust and well thought out, the unintended consequences can have lasting and damaging effects, including potential energy shortfalls and market volatility, as we have seen in recent years, which harm both producers and consumers. One of the biggest unintended policy risks relates to investments. The global oil sector alone will need cumulative investment of $12.1 trillion through to 2045. However, in recent years, we have heard calls from some to limit or stop funding for new oil and gas projects. This is disheartening and particularly impactful on developing countries with oil and gas resources. This great continent, Africa, has 120 billion barrels of proven oil reserves and 18 trillion standard cubic meters of natural gas. For countries to properly utilize these resources for the benefit of their people, investment levels must be adequate, whilst being mindful and taking actions to reduce the carbon footprint of the oil industry. However, movements by financial institutions to limit and stringently control how money is invested into fossil fuels under environmental, social, and governance constraints impedes the realization of this potential. This comes despite the fact that Africa only accounts for around 3% of global greenhouse gas emissions. For our part, OPEC is determined to contribute to an investment-friendly environment by taking the actions necessary to encourage oil market stability under the Declaration of Cooperation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude by emphasizing an extremely important point. OPEC deeply values Nigeria's membership of our organization. Since Nigeria joined OPEC back in 1971, we have benefited immensely from this great country's contributions to our endeavors. We will count on Nigeria in the years ahead, and we look forward to continued cooperation with the incoming administration led by President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Once again, thank you, and I wish you all a very successful summit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Haitam I. Gais, Secretary General of OPEC. And what's now to Apple? Dr. Omar Farouk, please. Can I please welcome him? He's quite a gentleman, allowing us to continue with OPEC at the time. Thank you, sir.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to please stand on existing protocols. Your Excellency Muhammad Buhari, President Commander-in-Chief, represented by His Excellency Boss Mustafa, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Honorable Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the African Petroleum Producers Organization, APO, I thank member country, the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and Brevity Anderson, the organizers of the Nigeria International Energy Summit, which I prefer to call by its original name, the Nigerian International Petroleum Summit, for the invitation to deliver a goodwill message to this important gathering. In the invitation letter to me, this edition of NIES, described as the valedictory edition of the Muhammad Buhari administration, is therefore expected to provide a platform for the administration to present its scorecard in the energy sector and the opportunity to offer a roadmap for the next administration. For us in APO, the last 8 years have been the most historic in the 38 years of the organization, and I'll tell you why. When the African Petroleum Producers Association, APA, the precursor to the African Petroleum Producers Organization, APA, was founded by 8 petroleum-producing African countries in 1987 in Lagos, Nigeria, the objective was very modest: to foster consultation and cooperation among African petroleum-producing countries in the areas of hydrocarbon resources development. And for 28 years, this objective guided the actions of the association. The global paradigm shift away from fossil fuels to renewable energies, which began from the last quarter of the last century and gathered greatest momentum at the Paris Climate Agreement of 2015, sent the red signal to APA members, whose governments are dependent on petroleum revenue to meet the basic obligations of the state, that the industry on which they depended is threatened. The quest for a reform thus began, and by 2019, APA and its objectives were replaced by the African Petroleum Producers Organization, APO, with new focus, new aims and objectives, new organizational structure, as well as new policy and decision-making structures and processes. The aim is to prepare the continent to address the challenges that the global energy transition shall pose to the African countries that have for decades depended heavily on fossil fuel revenue, and also to work towards creating the enabling environment for Africa's energy security, noting that our continent is the most energy poverty-stricken. A number of countries, some of who are represented here today, demonstrated unparalleled commitment to the success of the reform program and the takeoff of the new organization. We thank you, APO ministers, for your vision for the continent. Given the backdrop to the reform, one of the first decisions taken by the APO Ministerial Council was to commission a study on the future of the oil and gas industry in Africa in the light of the energy transition. The study identified 3 main challenges for the industry. These were the challenges of funding. For the several decades that Africa has been producing petroleum, it has relied essentially on external finance for its projects. The second challenge is technology and expertise. While Africa has proven reserves in the hundreds of billions of barrels and trillions of scopes of oil and gas respectively, it has always depended on foreign technology and to some extent expertise to produce these resources. And the final challenge is that Africa has not been able to develop markets for its resources and always relied on foreign markets. These 3 challenges have been the focus of APO in the last 3 years. We have come to the conclusion that the future of the African petroleum industry lies in the hands of Africans. For those who have, in the last 75 years or so, provided us the finance, the technology, and the markets, will dump us as soon as they have found alternatives. And they are working hard to find those alternatives. What is APO doing about this? For the funding of the oil and gas projects across the continent, we've gone into partnership with the Africa Exim Bank, Afri-Exim, to establish the Africa Energy Bank. Its primary objective is to finance oil and gas projects in the continent. Negotiations on the charter establishment and establishment agreement and governance structure have reached advanced stage. Very soon, a decision will be taken on where to locate the headquarters of the bank and set a date for its takeoff. It's important I mention that given Africa's experience with other institutions, we are making sure that APO member countries' interests are always protected. Shareholding shall be open to all African countries and their national oil companies, as well as other investors. The bank shall also welcome participation of NOCs outside Africa, but no sovereign outside of the African continent or any investor outside of Africa shall be allowed to participate who does not share our vision of the bank. Permit me to use this opportunity to thank Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari, Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic, for his encouragement in the process of founding the Africa Energy Bank, evidenced not only in approving Nigeria's subscription to the capital of the bank, but also ensuring that some part payments are made. On technology and expertise, the APO Secretariat has just completed a tour of institutions of oil and gas training, research, development, and innovation in some of our member countries. Nigerian institutions were among those inspected. The objective is to identify those institutions that can readily be upgraded and designated regional centers of excellence in the various sectors of the petroleum industry in Africa, upstream, midstream, and downstream. Given what we have seen in the various institutions that we have visited across our member countries, we are convinced that all we need to do is to pool our resources together, and we shall have great centers of oil and gas excellence in various regions of the African continent. I would like to use this opportunity to express our appreciation to the ministers and CEOs of national oil companies of the countries that we visited, some of whom are seated here with us and some are online, for the support and encouragement that we received. On the challenge of markets for our oil and gas, we believe that the coming into effect of AFTAC provides an excellent opportunity to work on developing cross-border and interregional energy infrastructure. We believe that with the level of energy poverty in Africa, we can do with all the energy we can produce and still need more. We are promoting the development of cross-border regional energy infrastructure. We see this as critical to making energy accessible to our people. We want to banish the mindset that our people are too poor to buy energy, so we have to look for those with the purchasing power to buy our energy. That mindset entrenches the poverty cycle in Africa. We have to break that cycle by empowering the people to have access to energy, with which their productivity would increase manifold, and with it, the growth of the national economies of our continent. Before I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to once again thank the APO ministers who took time from their busy schedule to honor the invitation to NIES, the 6th edition of NIES. I thank the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, and the organizers of NIES, that is Brevity Amberson, for the invitation to APO and its member countries. I wish you all a rewarding and insightful deliberations, and I thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Dr. Omar Farouk, Secretary General of APO. Speaking extensively of the importance of the collaboration between member states in Africa, achieving that very objective for the formation of the organization. Thank you. Two more remarks at this opening ceremony, and then we will take a family photo, and after that photo session, His Excellency, the President's representative, will depart. However, we will all be expected kindly to remain seated as the program would continue with the panel discussion, an international panel discussion, and thereafter we would go over to some bilateral meetings and reconvene at the ICC for the next plenary session. So once again, one more goodwill, then His Excellency's address, then a family photo session, and then we'll immediately go into the session where we'll listen to AFDB and some other experts who will be moderated by one of our industry leaders here. When we get to the family photo real quick, I will be calling on the ministers who are in the room, the heads of the agency who are in the room. I've seen NCDMB, NMDPRA, and of course NUPRC. I'll be calling on the chairman of the board of NMPC and NUPRC who is here. I'll also be calling on the MDs of the companies in Platinum, Gold, and the IPPG and the OPTS. I'm talking about Dr. Philip Michel Bila will be joining us at that time, Nigeria LNG. ExxonMobil's Mr. Ishaku will join us. Total Energies will also be joining us. Chevron, of course, OPTS is there. If there's a rep for Seplat, we'll expect you to join at that time, and the number will be completed by Coleman Cables and Wires. So that we just know when it's that time, you'll come out for the picture, and every other person who have not called will just very kindly remain seated, and we will not make it rowdy. After that picture, we'll take the national anthem while they're still standing there. His Excellency's rep will depart, and we'll all be kindly requested to remain seated as we continue with the panel discussion. Onwards now to the final goodwill before His Excellency addresses us. It is coming from the Ministry of Petroleum, Niger Republic. They call their Permanent Secretary General. Please welcome Mr. Zubeiru Mazou for his own short minutes of goodwill.
Madame Karim, merci de l'opportunité que vous me donnez en tant que secrétaire général du ministère du Pétrole, qui représente le ministre du Pétrole du Niger.
Thank you very much for the opportunity you have afforded me as the representative of the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources of the Republic of Niger.
Les autres cérémonies, c'est les ministres qui ont pu participer. Cette fois-ci, c'est le secrétaire général du ministère du Pétrole qui participe.
For other ceremonies, it's the Honorable Ministers of Petroleum Resources that have taken part in them. But this time around, it is the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources that's having the opportunity of taking part.
Vu l'opportunité que le Niger tire et le profit que nous tirons du Nigeria, le Nigeria ne peut pas organiser un événement si important que le Niger ne peut pas participer.
In view of the opportunities and the prospects that Nigeria presents to the Republic of Niger, Nigeria cannot be organizing an important event such as this without Niger taking active part in it.
C'est pourquoi, au nom du ministre du Pétrole et au nom du président de la République du Niger, nous vous disons merci. Merci pour tout ce que le Niger a fait pour le Niger.
That is the reason why, on behalf of the President of Niger and the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources of Niger, would like to say thank you very much to Nigeria for all that Nigeria has been doing to the Republic of Niger.
Bonjour.
I wish you Godspeed.
Merci.
I thank you.
Merci, Monsieur. I had wanted to get, as it were, a list of names of the ambassadors who are here to join the photograph, but I'm told there are quite a number of ambassadors who are here. So Your Excellencies, the ambassadors of nations who are here. When we get to the photograph, we'll also request that your kind presence join dignitaries in taking those pictures. Onwards now, we will take, I have said, and it has also been alluded to by the IPPG chairman, that this last 8 years, I'll be winding down next month, has been quite kind to the oil and gas industry in terms of policies that have become laws, in terms of the number of things that saw the light of the day, which before now had struggled to see the light of the day. So yes, there had been some commendable success recorded in the oil and gas industry under the stewardship of our president, who will soon become, who is now the outgoing president. But he's ably represented here this morning by one of his team members who have also put in a whole lot of work in helping him deliver, as it were, a successful tenure as our president, the secretary to the government of the Federation. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Boss Mustafa, CFR. Now the mic has to go up. This is when I feel very short. You're welcome, sir.
members of the Federal Executive Council here present, of the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum Resources, Chairman of the Board of NMPC, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, captains of industry, delegates from the different African countries, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen of the press. Let me first apologize for the inability of the Vice President, who is supposed to stand in for Mr. President, who is away in Saudi Arabia for the Lesser Hajj. He also has state commitments out of the city of Abuja. And he has asked me to stand in for him at this summit. And it's quite gratifying for me because these are some of the perks of the office. You get to stand in for your bosses. And I'm doing that with all delight. I'm truly delighted to be back here to open this year's edition of the Nigeria International Energy Summit, NIES, which I had the privilege of inaugurating back in 2018 as the Nigeria International Petroleum Summit. The Nigeria International Energy Summit, NIES, is the brainchild of the Buhari administration, and I'm extremely proud of what the summit has become in the last 6 years. If my recollection is right, we started NIES to counter Nigeria's and indeed Africans' penchant for trooping to the Offshore Technology Conference, OTC, in Houston every year, spending millions of US dollars to do what could better be done on the African continent. It is therefore gratifying to note that so much has been achieved, and NIES has indeed become a truly Pan-African energy event with a global outreach. And for me, it is quite a tremendous honor to have been part of it from the very beginning. This is my last NIES appearance as Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and I feel that it presents me an auspicious opportunity to attempt a brief review of our administration's scorecard in this all-important energy sector. When we assumed office in 2015, the energy sector was not exactly where it should be, but we never shied away from taking on the challenges that face the sector. Bit by bit, we dismantled some of those challenges, and a lot of people in this room worked closely with us to make things happen. Energy was and will remain a top priority of this administration till my last day in office. That is the reason we paid close attention and backed a lot of reforms in the sector. We embarked on all these reforms not just because it is good for energy industry, but because it is also good for the overall economy. And our efforts indeed helped grow our economy and created a lot of jobs. The first task we combated was the issue of funding and incentivizing the oil and gas sector. We dealt with it decisively. We exited the federal government from joint venture cash call funding in a very creative way. And this freed up the federal government from the issues of funding the oil sector. The Petroleum Industry Act, PIA, remains our single biggest achievement in the energy sector. For decades, we were told that because of various vested interests, it could be near impossible to pass the bill. But we made it happen. What we did with the PIA, you will all agree with me, was simply revolutionary. And we did it. We did not rest on our oars with the enactment of the Act. We moved swiftly into action, scrapped the existing agencies and replaced them with new regulators. The Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC, was immediately transformed to a limited liability company, the NNPC Limited, with a new brand identity, and it is on course to becoming the biggest, most capitalized, and most profitable company in the whole of Africa. In the natural gas sector, we made a lot of progress. The agenda was gas revolution. We pushed from diversification of Nigeria's economy and drove industrialization through domestic gas utilization. We officially declared natural gas as the transition fuel for Nigeria. We launched many initiatives to ensure that natural gas optimization and utilization is a reality. The National Gas Policy of 2017 articulated the policy goals, strategies, and implementation plan to reposition Nigeria as an attractive gas-based industrialized nation through the prioritization of local gas demand requirements, and we put in place a strategic framework to achieve the said objectives. We launched the National Gas Transportation Network Code, which was on the drawing table for several years. The Network Code is a set of rules guiding the use of gas transportation system, a contractual framework between the network operator and the shippers, which provides open and competitive access to gas transportation infrastructure. We are also making progress with the Nigerian Gas Flare Commercialization Program, which provides opportunities for the federal government, industries, state governments, ethnic nationalities, and the local communities to work together to resolve oil field unacceptable practices. We declared January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2030 as Nigeria's decade of gas, a period during which the government aspires to accelerate gas production and use same to tackle energy demand, poverty, industrialization, job creation, and ultimately lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty, among other things. We also made giant strides in infrastructure. We kick-started the $2.8 billion Ajakuta-Kaduna-Kano AKK natural gas pipeline project. The AKK project would transport up to 3,500 million cubic feet of gas a day from various gas gathering projects and help to generate 3.6 gigawatts of power and support gas-based industries along the route when completed. At present, the 614-kilometer gas pipeline is 43% completed. We have also reinvigorated the private sector in the industry. We ensured an attractive framework for the indigenous companies to take advantage of the investment by international oil companies. This move ensured that the indigenous companies grew their capacity tremendously, and they are now accountable for about 30% of national oil and gas production, up from just 2% in 2010. We implemented a marginal fields bid round and saw to the conclusion of the process, which resulted in the award of petroleum prospective licenses to 161 successful farms, with the federal government raking in about 200 billion naira as well as $7 million from the process. Our administration took the issue of ease of doing business very serious and we created the conducive environment for businesses to thrive. You don't have to take my word for it, but many of the big businesses that came on stream in the lifetime of this administration are backing up this fact. The $5 billion Nigerian LNG Train 7 project is one of such. It is one of the most ambitious construction projects in Nigeria. Upon completion, the Nigeria LNG Train 7 project would increase the Nigeria LNG terminal production capacity by 35% from the current 22 million metric tons per annum to 30 million metric tons per annum. Another proof that the ease of doing business of this administration is not just a mere matter, is the reality that Dangote refinery has become. It is Africa's biggest oil refinery and the world's biggest single oil, and the world's biggest refining facility in one location. And upon completion, it will process 650,000 barrels of crude oil per day. And this will help Nigeria become the prime destination for oil refining in Africa. Let me also point out that many modular refineries came on stream and are up and running during the lifetime of this administration. Ladies and gentlemen, we made several other modest achievements in the energy sector, and we are documenting them properly for future. Posterity will be kind to this administration in the area of energy reform. This edition of the summit should not only be about our scorecard, but also about the incoming administration and the future of our nation. That is why the theme, which is global perspectives for sustainable energy reform or future, is quite up. I have the privilege of chairing the Presidential Transition Council. And looking at the amount of work and documentation that we have put in place, and we are about to prepare all the transition documents as well as the briefing notes for the incoming government. The volume of work that has been achieved under the tenure of President Muhammadu Buhari is unprecedented, particularly even in the energy sector. And my prayer and hope is that at the end of this summit, whatever you have for the purposes of ensuring that the incoming administration gets to work on the 30th of May, 2023. Please do not hesitate to do the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum Resources. Convey those documents to us and the areas of strategic intervention that you want the incoming government to embark on as quickly as possible. Describing them either as short-term, medium-term, and long-term, so that President-elect Aswaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu can get straight to work to deal with the sustainability of the reforms that have been brought on board. Over the next 4 days, speakers and panelists will dissect the global energy trends and perspectives and provide the incoming administration a good roadmap to drive Nigeria's energy future. I enjoin you all as an industry to give the incoming administration the maximum support and cooperation that I received from you. Finally, I wish to commend the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources and all her parastatals and the organizers of this summit for delivering once again another world-class summit. I promise that I will not turn my back on this summit. This will not be my last appearance at NIES. I hope to be back for the 2024 edition, but in my private capacity as a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is therefore my privilege and honor to declare the 6th edition of the Nigeria International Energy Summit open, and I wish you fruitful deliberations. Thank you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please take your seats for a few seconds. We just want to prep the floor for the picture. Just take your seats and I'll call you back. Just take your seat. I'll call you back in a second, in a minute rather. I want the crew to just quickly. Thank you very much. Can we please give Mr. Boss Mustafa another round of applause? He has given us a brief summary of some of the laudable achievements I was speaking to earlier of His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari's administration in the oil and gas industry, and of course, some of the socio-economic policies that impacted the lives of vulnerable and poor Nigerians, and has also given this conference a charge and an assurance that whatever that you come up with by way of a strategic plan of what the industry has to do or should be doing when His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu comes into office May 29th, bring it forward to him and the Minister of Petroleum Resources. They will advance it to the incoming administration and ensure that they give the right kind of advice, show him where the bodies are buried and what to be done. Thank you. Please, one more time, let's give him a resounding applause. Thank you very much, sir. Stephen, I guess we are ready, and I'd like to call you back here. Before I call you SGF, sir, if you just give me a moment, let me invite some of our sponsoring companies to join this. IPPG Chairman, Mr. Razak, can you please step forward, sir? Please come. OPTS Chair, please join him. Thank you very much. Mr. Isiaku of ExxonMobil, please come now. Please come for the picture. Please come. Yes. Oga Ahmed, please, sir. Thank you very much. Please join them. Dr. Michelle Bila, Enjoy LNG, MTPRM, Mr. Koha, please come. Stephen, as they are coming, can you be doing your job, please? Thank you very much. Thank you. Please come. Thank you. James Shindi and Mr. Akoni, can you also step forward real quick? Thank you very much. Thank you. The representative of AFDB, please, sir, if you can also come forward. Thank you very much. The representative of Total Energies, I have not seen Mr. Sangster. Can I get someone from Total, please? Is there? Oh, I got Victor. Sorry, I didn't see you. Thank you very much. Seplat Energy, is Dr. Choma here? Someone from Seplat, please step forward. Please come. Coleman Cables, please step forward. Let me now call on ES NCDMB, CCE, please step forward. Sir, NUPRC, please step forward. My chairman of board of NNPC, can you please step forward as well, madam? Please step forward. Thank you. Can I have all the ministers in the room, please step forward now. All the ministers in the room, sirs and mas, please step forward. All the ministers in the room, please step forward. Please step forward. Okay. Yes, I'm going there. I'm told that I have about 50 ambassadors here. That would be a lot. I don't know how realistic that figure is. But if that is the case, can I get a few ambassadors? Please join the free as well. Apo Sekjen, Permanent Secretary Nigeria, Permanent Secretary Niger, please step forward. Can I get a couple of ambassadors? I hear they're up to 50. Let me just get some ambassadors. I know 50 might not cut it. Let me get some ambassadors. Thank you very much. Stephen, if we're ready, let's now have Mr. Boss Mustafa join for those pictures to happen. My SGF, sir. Do I have ambassadors here now? I have an ambassador? There's an ambassador here? Okay. Okay, another of the ambassadors after this. Okay, fine. So after this, SGF, the PAMSEC, and okay, I think some ambassadors are coming already. All right, cool. No, some of them. Sorry, easy. There's still space on the staircase at the top here. Yes, please. This has become like a tradition at this event. This sort of documents the opening ceremony for the organizers. Thank you all very much. Stephen, are we good? Can we take the picture now? Stephen, we're good? Please go ahead. All right, so remember, after this picture, while they are still standing here, Technical will play the national anthem. After the national anthem, all the other dignitaries will go back and take their seat, while His Excellency's representative will take his leave, and we will continue with the session. Remember, in that session, we'll begin by listening to Mr. Kiwumi Adesina, the President of the African Development Bank, and after that, a panel will follow to discuss what his paper will be talking about, where we have the permanent secretaries of the Ministry of Human Resources, Nigeria and Niger Republic. Please, did ambassadors come out? They came out. Please, just give me a second. Mr. Edubong, please. I've just been informed that you should be in this picture real quick. You know, I'm an errand boy. I work as I'm directed. Thank you for your understanding. Just let Edubong join, and we'll do one more, and we're done. Thank you, thank you. Technical, wait for my cue, and you will play national anthem. Wait for my cue, and you play the national anthem. Stephen, are we good? Please remain standing there. National anthem. Thank you very much. Please, one more time, can we give our speakers and our sponsors the opening ceremony a resounding applause? Please take your seats. Photographers, you can retire to the corner. The event is still ongoing. We have now a panel session. We also have on this panel, joining us all the way from Libya, the Minister of Petroleum of Libya. So please remain seated. Take your seat. Please remain seated. Take your seat. Thank you very much. Thank you one more time, Mr. Boss Mustafa, Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Please, let's take our seats. The event continues. The event continues. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please take your seats. Photographers, please, can you go back to positions in the corner? We'll appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please take your seats. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Please take your seats. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Photographers, you are the ones making this standing continue. Please go back to your positions. Thank you. Photographers, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Please go back to your positions. We have Apple on that panel. We have Africa Energy Chamber on that panel. We have the Minister of Oil and Gas, Government of National Unity of Libya on that panel. And the Senior Vice President, Infrastructure and Climate for Chapel Hill, Denham, will be moderating. Please take your seats. Thank you very much. Please take your seats. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. Please take your seats. Please take your seat. Thank you very much. Kunle Stevenson, can I see you, please? Please take your seats. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Can we please allow the chairman of the board of NNPC take her seat? Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. For the records, I am giving a list to call for those pictures. So I work with what instruction I've received from my bosses at every point in time. Tell him when he goes down. Tell him.